Okay, as I say, the tune is in A minor, and we begin virtually in an A minor position. The rhythm guitar is playing the chord, but we outline the notes from the A minor pentatonic scale, which incidentally are A, C, D, E and G. Here we begin with A at the 2nd fret of the G string, followed by C at the 1st fret of the B string, followed by D 2 frets higher, that's the 3rd fret of the B string. And we're going to bend that up just a little. Incidentally, right at the moment I've got my echo unit off, so this bend may sound a bit insipid at the moment, but when I kick in the echo, it'll have more character. I'll take the echo off once again. So that bend is from D with your 3rd finger, and bend it up, not a whole tone, we don't want it to reach there, just round about the E flat. I'll play a fretted E flat and you match your note to that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Your note should match that. Once again, 2, 3, 4. And that phrase, I'll put the echo on here. It comes in on beat 2. So I'll give you a 1 bar count, 4 beats, then you'll hear me count the number 1, then you join in. 2, 3, 4, 1. Let's try that one more time. 1 bar count plus the number 1 of the next bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, I'm sure you've got that. I'll disengage the echo once again. It's followed by a similar sounding riff, and although we're not doing the modern sweep picking, if you look at my right hand here, holding the plectrum, I'm going to sweep across, or rake. Now that is fairly controlled, don't make it too fast or too slow, not too pronounced. Make it kind of rhythmic. We're going to do a downward glide stroke with the plectrum from the G string to the B string, from the note A to the note C, like that. Then land on a new note, that's high G, top string, 3rd fret, and slide up with no particular rhythm, just slide up quickly. That's the 3rd fret of the top string, slide up to the A. As I said, it's no particular rhythm, it's just a grace note, or a ceccatura, excuse my Italian there, a ceccatura, bless you. So we go 3, 4, 1, and then there's an open E. You could play that on the B string at the 5th fret, but I believe it's an open top string. So this is the 2nd ending for that phrase. You follow that for the 2nd time with this new phrase. 2, 3, 4, 1. Let's try that whole phrase, and I'll engage the echo here. 2, 3, 4, 1. And there will be a pickup note after that. And so that's the main intro. As I was just saying, there's a pickup note, by which I mean an E. That's the 2nd fret of the 4th string, or D string, on the last 8th note of the bar. We're going into bar 5, technically. This is the main part of the tune, which I'll call section A. This is quite straightforward. Isn't it wonderful, incidentally, when Hank Marvin gives us such straightforward melodies? And I mean that in a really positive way. It's so easy to learn, yet the world over people love those melodies. So here we go with a nice simple melody. E, I, F sharp. Let me give you the frets there. The 2nd fret of the 4th string, up to the same fret, the 2nd fret of the 2nd string. Briefly, you may wish to try separate fingertips. It's entirely up to you. Here you can see I'm using my 2nd fingertip to my 3rd fingertip. You could, of course, use a bar. I'm currently using my index finger. There again, you could use your middle finger. It's really your choice. Before we leave that point, What if I did use my middle finger? There's a danger I might accidentally get that C sharp. And if there's an A minor chord, C sharp would clash with that because an A minor chord has a C note, doesn't it? Do you understand what I'm saying there technically? If you chose that, you might accidentally catch that, which would be awful. So I'm in favour of using, like I said at the beginning, the separate fingertips. So that's E, A to F sharp. That's the third finger moving over to the fourth string, fourth fret. And it follows on very straightforward. E, D, it's an open D, open fourth string to an E. Let's practice that phrase with the echo unit on. Come in on beat 1 after my count. 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm sure you can pick that up. The good news is that that is repeated. Okay, moving swiftly along. Remember we had a pickup note, that E. Well, Hank transposed it up a fourth. And a fourth above E is A. So, for the next phrase, we simply transpose that line. So the pickup note is now A, which I would recommend using the third string, second fret, perhaps with the index finger. And we're going to rise up to the note of D on the second string, third fret. Okay? And what happens here is it goes up to D, and then there's an open B, open second string. So that's back to the A, up to the D again, then an open B, A, G, A. I'm sure you can pick that up, okay? Then it goes back to the earlier phrase, da, 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 the one which I was teaching a few moments ago. Okay, why don't we practice that passage at 80 beats per minute, a moderate tempo. I happen to have a metronome here with me, and incidentally, it's always a good idea to regularly practice with a metronome. So, if I get my metronome in 4/4, that's 80 beats per minute. Let's try the A section. Let's call it the verse. Remember to come in with the E note just before the end of the bar, after the beat of 4, on the and after 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I've got my echo unit off so you can hear the notes clearly. 2, 3, 4. Take it across. Hold. And to finish the A section, the original. Dun, dun. Here you go. Sustain. And that concludes the A section. Okay, just to be perfectly clear, although the pickup note, that E, at the end of the intro was an eighth note, I should just point out that the other pickup notes are simply on the fourth beat, like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, followed by the A note, of course. Okay, that concludes the A section. Okay, let's carry on with the B section, where we drop down to the chord of F. And we're playing a fragment of F. It may be as well just to form an F chord for yourself so you know exactly what's going on. There's a bar F, which I'm sure you know. And in fact, watch, there's the bar F. Take away the bar, take away the second finger perhaps, and there we have it. That's what we're about to play. First of all, very slowly, quite simply, I'll describe it as a gallop. I'm sure you know the section if you've heard the song before. Coming in on beat 1. So I'll give you my usual count of 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'll stop there because it's basically that repeated. Okay, the notes are C at the 3rd fret of the 5th string, and also at the 3rd fret but of the 4th string, the note F. As you can see, I've got separate fingertips there. I guess you could consider doing a bar, but do you remember my previous warning about an A? You might get an A major over an A minor, which would be bad. Equally, if you went for that, you might accidentally catch that, which would be awful, wouldn't it? So I would discourage bars on this occasion. So, the note of C to the note of F in a galloping fashion. Da, 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 da. So, one C note followed by two Fs. Let's try that again, slightly faster. 2, 3, 4. Again. One more time. Okay, let's try that to a metronome setting of 80 beats per minute. After 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Incidentally, you may have noticed that we don't complete the gallop there. At the end of the second bar, it's just 2 straight eighth notes, just 2 Fs. Okay, that was 80 beats per minute. Let's make it slightly more challenging. Take the tempo up to 100 beats per minute. So come in on the first beat of the bar after my count of 4. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can hear, I've got the echo disengaged so you can hear the notes clearly. On the point of the clarity, can you see and hear that I was actually taking the fingers on and off? Not completely, because there's a danger of getting open strings, which we don't want here. So I was playing that note, and then as I go to play the upper note, this finger just releases the pressure on the string, so you get and not. That wouldn't be terrible, but it would make things a little messy, especially with the echoes. It's a bit muddy, isn't it? Whereas if I kill this note, it keeps it just a little clearer. That resolves from the last heard note of F down to E. Remember 2 Fs? E, second fret of the 4th string, down to an open 5th string, an open A. Okay, before we move on, why don't we try that B section at 100 beats a minute, which is a little slower than the record, but it's a good opportunity to practice. 100 beats a minute. Come in on beat 1 after my count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exactly the same again. And that time you just hold the E, you don't re-hit the A. You'll notice for maximum clarity in this demonstration, I was letting the notes ring quite clearly. But as you probably know, Hank, along with Chet Atkins and Merle Travis, quite a lot of country and pop guitar players, they would ever so gently lean on the strings. There's a dry note. Compare that with a ringing note. Not too heavily muted. We want to hear the notes. So I'll lighten up with my palm there. That's heavily muted, too heavily muted. Ease up a bit. You can still hear the notes I'm playing, as opposed to fully ringing. So, slight palm muting. In some magazines you might see P.M., an abbreviation for palm muting. Okay, that concludes the B section. Okay, let's carry on with the C section. This is where the chordal accompaniment goes from F to G to C. Incidentally, that's in the key of C, the 4th chord and the 5th chord and the 1st chord in the key of C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 1. Okay, that's being played by the accompaniment, of course. What we do is outline the notes of the chord. And I said acciaccature earlier. I can't even say it now, can I? I hopefully can say arpeggio, another Italian word. Arpeggio, I'm sure you've heard of it. It's the notes of a chord one at a time. What I just played, cold there, is pretty much what Hank played. That is, the notes of an F chord. No need to bar, it's just like a beginner style F. It looks like I'm holding down the top string, but you only need the 4th and 3rd and 2nd string. To be clear, that's the note of F on the 4th string, the note of A on the G string, and the note of C on the B string. Those 3 notes are played on beats 2, 3 and 4. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Really nice and simple, isn't it? The next note you hear is the note of B, which sometimes in this tune is played as an open B string, but I do believe that it was played as the 4th fret of the G string. Why do I think that? Why am I quite confident about that? When I listened to the recording, which was 1960, I believe, an educated guess tells me that Hank was using a wound third at that time, and if you dig out the original recording, you notice that the B note that you hear next is quite noticeably subdued. Nothing wrong with it, it's just noticeably subdued. Doesn't it make sense that with a wound third string, that would make sense, wouldn't it? So, F, A, C, B, reaching out with the little finger there on the G string 4th fret. Then the next note is C, D, the next note is E, C, D, E, the 1st and 2nd and 3rd scale steps of C major. The E is an open E. Let's hear that phrase slowly. Coming in on beat 2. 2, 3, 4, 1. C, D, E. Let's pause for thought here. What happens next is E, D, C, A. That's simply an open E, D below it on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, C below that on the 1st fret of the 2nd string, then A at the 2nd fret of the G string. Let's just analyse the rhythm there for a moment. I don't know if you're familiar with a 3 against 2 rhythm. 3 crotchets in the space of 2. If I start my metronome up again at 80 beats a minute, in the space of 2 clicks, you've got 3 notes. Of course it's possible, and so in the space of those 2, I'm going to fit 3 notes like this. Watch my da 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 da, and what we do there is play the. I think it'd be a good idea to repeat that phrase over and over, just for the sake of understanding the rhythm. So it's going to be E, D, C, A, E, D, C, A. At this point, I'd urge you to tap your foot along with my metronome. Foot, 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 foot. 1, 2, 3, 4. E, D, C, A. E, D, C, A. With me. E, D, C, A. Okay, I think I've made my point now. Then we have the same phrase that we did a few moments ago. F, A, C. Then I believe there's an open B. How do I know it's an open B, not the fretted one? As I was explaining earlier, the wound third had a subdued tone, whereas this one, if you listen to the original, clearly is quite rigging. Then it's another C, another D, then an open 3rd string, open G. Moving on to the next phrase within this C section, slide the D note up 2 frets, the 5th fret of the B string. Your first finger should already be in position for the note which follows, G. So we get return to the E note. Then in the next bar, you briefly pick that and slide along. It's another accatura. It's another one of those. So you go, it's a grace note. Seriously, that's called a grace note or crushing note. Can you see why it's called a crushing note? It crushes into the next one. The easiest way of explaining this phrase is to take the one which we were just doing, the E to the G, and look, just take it along as a whole to the note of G and B flat. So we've had, or rather, re-pick that string. Let it ring and re-pick the B string, and oh, I've forgotten I've got one of these. I'm sure we'll talk more about that later. Let me re-engage that. The vibrato bar. often mistakenly called the tremolo bar. So press down on that. That will of course sound much nicer with the echo. Notice how it sounds nicer with that top note ringing as well. Okay, let's practice this little passage that leads up to the use of the vibrato bar. I'll bring you in from the open G string, which is on beat 1, and then on beat 2 and we'll start the sliding business. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I'm sure you can pick that up. Okay, let's move along now. We play the F, A, C notes again, just like I was teaching you a few minutes ago. The next B note is once again on the G string. So why has it changed? I've explained before, haven't I, about the string tonalities, or timbre, French word for tone colour, I believe. So the timbre of that, I'm not using a wound G, by the way, but Hank probably would have been at the time. So in the second half of this C section, F, A, C, B, C, D, E, D, C, A. That's all like the first half of the section. Then you follow it up with the gallop, which I've already taught you. Remember the da 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 and so on? You take the first end of that, so to speak, which went 2 Fs, dun, dun, E, open A. Then, just like before, in the B section, you do the gallop again and finish with a single E. I trust that makes sense. Let's be clear on that. The end of the C section effectively finishes with the end of the B section, the gallop. The B section is the gallop. Okay, that concludes the C section. Okay, I hope you're doing well there. You might expect, after the C section, the D section, but no. Seriously, most popular music, either instrumental or vocal, will typically just have 3 component parts. That's enough for most people to listen to, isn't it? The A part, the B part, the C part. So what we have next, in fact, is a virtual repeat of the A section. So rather than call it the D section, I will in fact call it the A2 section. To make that perfectly clear, you may recall the A section after the intro was that kind of thing. Well, now we're taking the same notes, albeit at a higher position. Let me just show you. The E to A, which was previously down near the nut, is now at the 7th fret of the 5th string and the 7th fret of the 4th string. Also, it turns into a bit of a gallop, which is reminiscent of the B section. Isn't that interesting, by the way, to have repetition, familiarity? So, it's the A2 section we're dealing with now. I'll be brief here because it's roughly similar to the A section. It's just a bit busier. It's a gallop. Let's get straight into it. 2, 3, 4. Let's pause there. So that was a pick-up E note to the A, and then you gallop on it, so to speak. Back to the E, back to the A. Remember, I was encouraging you earlier to separate the notes by not using a bar and using separate fingertips. Don't take them off completely, just release the pressure so you get nice clear notes. The F sharp is where it was before, but of course it will now be with this finger, the first finger at the 4th fret. So that's E, A, F sharp. So after the F sharp note, there's an E, then D, then up to the I, down to the E. Then that whole passage repeats itself. Let's try that to a moderate tempo, 80 beats a minute. Remember, we're basically galloping here. Pick up on the and beat after 4. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. And cut it off. We're halfway through this A2 section. The good news is that it transposes up. Now, you might expect, therefore, that it goes across there. But the sound of the strings got a little bit more metallic. I think he would have been going to the B string for the D note. So instead of that, which you might expect after that, I don't think it's there, I think it's down here. So here's the second half of the A2 section. Pick up on the A note, which is now at the 2nd fret of the G string, then up to the D. And we carry on galloping. 2 A's, 1 D, 1 A. The next note is B, and it's on the G string, 4th fret, 3rd string, 4th fret. Carry on galloping just for a short while. 2 A's, 2 G's, a single D, and let it sustain. Single A, let it sustain. Then we do the gallop again, but clearly there's no reason to go back up there. I'm quite confident that Hank stayed there. In other words, the end of this A2 section is like the start of it, except in this position. That is. Then you do the A, E, form an A minor chord, an everyday A minor chord, go for the bar, and there's a bit of a rhythm to this. Ba-da-da-da-dang, ba-da-da-da-dang, ba-da-da-da-dang. I'm saying that you should strive to make the striking of the strings rhythmic, not just like that, not just like falling down the stairs, but ba-da-da-da-dang, ba-da-da-da-dang. I am, of course, doing it at a reduced tempo. Let's hear it without the echo, cleanly. 3, 4, 1. Let's accelerate. With the echo. Doesn't do any harm to give a little wobble there, of course. Okay, that concludes the A2 section. Okay, we're nearly done now. We've just concluded the A2 section. Now you might expect another B section, but no, in fact it's a C2 section, which as you might expect is just a slight variation on the C section. What was the C section? The that part. It's more or less the same. We come in on beat 2 and play on each of the beats of the bar. 2, 3, 4. Now this time, he does actually play an open B string. Then you get that 3 against 2 rhythm, remember? 3 against 2. 2, 3, 4. Bang, bang, bang. And what were the notes? E, D, C. So you do that thing again. Now the only real difference here is that when you get to that point where you play the open G string, a lovely little flourish here, which he probably did on the spur of the moment. A little bit of a gallop there. Open G to the next highest fret, A flat, I'll call that. That's all on the G string there. And then it carries on. And then, to be brief, it goes back to the gallop, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the end of the B section. After the gallop, there's a variation on the gallop. That is, we go down to a new note, a low F, 1st fret of the 6th string. You play ding da da ding. Then you slide along, I think with the index finger, slide along to the 5th fret, the note of A. So you go ding da da ding, ding da da ding da da, and start galloping on that. Then, as you come out of that phrase, you kind of hook on to the C note, if that makes sense. You drag it along. So we have F, slide to A, dun, da, da, dun, da, da. It's tempting just to go straight across to the note of F, but there's a slide on the record. I'm guessing that Hank went. I did consider sliding right up to the 13th fret of the 6th string, but no, something tells me that's not right. I think he just stayed in position, albeit briefly moving back. So that's 2, 3, 4. That was another Achiacachura, by the way. crashing note. And that's about it, because the outro is effectively intro, remember? Da-da-da, the very first thing we looked at. Da-da-da-da-da, exactly the same. The second half of that is just like at the beginning. Da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da. 2 more things to go. He does that one more time. Da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da. By which time the original record would have faded, and then I believe there's a A, C, A, C, A. Okay, I trust there was nothing too difficult there, and so that concludes the teaching of Apache.